How are you, Sonny?
I'm good, Hugh. You got it right. Across the movie aisle.
I know it takes a while, but I'm a slow learner. I have a recommendation and a question before I turn you loose, and a lament. The lament is that the Potomac Yard movie theater is being closed and redeveloped into Virginia Tech campus. The recommendation is that you read at least the first 200 pages of Karen Tumulty's book about Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, called The Triumph of Nancy Reagan, because it's so doggone Hollywood. It's so much fun. And then the question, I have a viewing question: Billions or Succession? That's my choice between the next thing that I watch on streaming, which I have not watched
Sure,
either. What should I do, Billions or Succession?
sure. So, first off, the Potomac Yards news, I had heard, and it's a little bit sad because I'm always sad to hear when theaters are closing, except for the fact that Potomac Yards, I don't know if you've ever been to the
Oh,
Potomac
it's a
Yards
horrible
Theater.
place, but it
It
was
was,
close enough for me to get to.
I mean, it's a real pit.
Yeah.
So, that's not the end of the world as far as movie theaters being closed goes. I still need to read Karen Tumulty's book, and I should definitely do that because, as you mentioned, there's a very strong Hollywood component. Billions versus Succession is an interesting question because I only watched the first episode of Succession, a show that I had heard really good things about because my wife was not into it at all. And I have found that I can only really afford to watch an entire television show if my wife is also into it because it's
This is true.
something we can
This
do
is
together.
true. This is true.
So she wasn't that into it. I guess I'd have to say Billions then, though I haven't watched Billions either because I don't have Showtime, which is what it's on.
You're not really much of a help on this question then.
Yeah,
So you've
I'm
seen
sorry.
1 hour of both shows and you're not going
Yeah.
to see either of them.
I would suggest Succession. I think just because there's less of it, it's shorter. My understanding is it's pretty funny too, but I don't know. If I were to choose one to watch by myself, it would be Succession. But again, I don't really have that.
Well, I caught up on Mandalorian, and while I am the Mandalorian of the radio, I was not impressed with season 2, and I'm glad it's over.
You didn't like season 2? See, I liked season 2. I thought it was really. I found it very entertaining. Just the way it was structured as kind of like the A-Team in Star Wars, where the guy is going town to town and righting wrongs, and there's a
little predictable. The last. I'm not giving no spoilers. Not here, not now, not ever. But the last hour was great, and the rest of it mediocre. So, what are you talking about this week, Sonny?
Well, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I mean, there's a horror movie that you're probably not going to like, but I
not going to go
briefly.
Go ahead.
It is in theaters, so that's one reason I want to mention it. But it's called In the Earth. It's by this director named Ben Wheatley. And the way I would describe it is the first great horror movie of the pandemic. It's set in Great Britain. It's about a guy who is going to study some phenomenon in the woods, but it takes place in the midst of a pandemic. It's not about COVID. They don't say, oh, COVID, blah, blah. But, he goes through all of these quarantine and lockdown protocols, right? He's getting sprayed down with misty decontamination, formulas, and he's giving blood tests, and then they're doing nasal swabs, et cetera, et cetera. And it's very much about the idea of purity in the forest and in nature, as opposed to, the contamination of the cities and all that. Except nature isn't really pure either. Nature has its own forms of wickedness and debasement and defilement. It is a very rough movie to watch in certain places. I would not recommend it for the weak of stomach or weak of heart. But it is an interesting little bit of elevated horror, as they like to call it, the genre of horror that is, a little fancier than slasher.
As I like to say, Sonny, not going to do it. Wouldn't be prudent. Not a chance. But anyway, you rank it highly among these kinds of movies.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for sure. It's definitely art healthy, and it's a little bit artsy fartsy. I would say there's a lot of kind of weird editing
I was hoping you were going to tell me whether I should see Judas and the Black Messiah.
I've seen that. I mean, it was on HBO Max for a while. I don't think it still is. I think it's just
in theaters
now.
Yep.
Yeah. So Judas and the Black Messiah is it's a movie about Fred Hampton and the FBI informant who betrayed him, the so-called the titular Judas and Black Messiahs. I didn't love it. But I did like it. I mean, I think Daniel Kaluuya is very, very good as Fred Hampton, and I liked Lakeith Stanfield as the guy who betrays him. So I don't know that it's great or anything, but it's entertaining enough. It is one of the Best Picture nominees. So if you want to see,
that's why I'm going to go see it.
Nominees, you should check it out. I don't think it's the best movie of the year for sure, and of the nominees. Of the nominated films, again, the one that I liked the most was The Father, which I talked about last week.
Can't find that anywhere near me. Can't find The Father. I'd go see it. I like Anthony Hopkins a lot.
Yeah, it was only playing in one theater near me, and that theater was like 20 miles from me, so it wasn't even that near. But it is on demand. So if you want to watch it on TV at home, you can do it that way.
What else you got for us? I mean, it's the weekend, Sonny.
All right, so I have a Netflix recommendation, a minor Netflix recommendation. This isn't a movie or a show that I loved, but it was entertaining enough. It was fine. I was able to watch it and enjoy it. It's called This Is a Robbery: The World's Greatest Art Heist, and it is about the 1990 theft of 13 classic works of art at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston. It's a real story.
Yeah, I know this. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real story. It's about, so one night in 1990, two guys dressed up as cops broke into the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, stuck up the guards, locked them down in the basement, and then made off with 13 paintings, including a Rembrandt, a priceless Rembrandt, his only seascape, Jesus on the Sea of Galilee, or Christ on the Sea of Galilee. I forget what exactly it was called. But and a bunch of other, rare art that was part of the collection there. The show is 4 episodes long. Each episode's about 45, 50 minutes. Which means that, like every other Netflix thing, it's probably about 45 or 50 minutes too long. It could have been trimmed down in places, but it's got an interesting cast of characters. Like there's this one guy, this art thief, who lived in Boston, who swears he had nothing to do with the robbery and was actually in prison at the time of the robbery. But the show seems to think he deserves to be a serious suspect, or kind of a liaison with the Italian mob. I mean, this is the big thesis of this program, is that it was either the Irish mob or the Italian mob, and the Irish mob seems not to really have had anything to do with it, and the Italian mob comes in for most of the scrutiny. So,
well, I like this idea. It's on my list below the Chicago 7 for Netflix stuff. I haven't watched that one yet either.
It's fine. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's the greatest show I've ever seen. Again, it's a little bit long. It drags out in places. It runs down some blind alleys. Like all of these things, it's just a little bit too long. But it's fine. It's entertaining, and if you're looking to kill some time this weekend, you could do worse than watching that, for sure.
All right. I don't know if it's going to rain in Virginia. It seems like it's rained every day since I got back. So I'm back my lean-to is flooded, and it's terrible. The studio's swampy, but.
Yeah, well, it's raining here in Dallas too. Interestingly,
did you ever move to Austin for even like a cup of coffee?
I have been to Austin. I didn't move to Austin. No,
I was just reading a real estate story about Austin, and it's the craziest housing market in America right now for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's like San Francisco at the height of the tech boom right now, because everybody's trying to move from San Francisco to Austin.
Or Nashville or Alexandria. You like Dallas? Yeah. Dallas is booming too. So you got time for one more recommendation, or just
one more recommendation? Yes, absolutely. So Mythic Quest, which I have talked about before, it's a sitcom on Apple TV Plus. by the guys who made Always Sunny in Philadelphia, who still make Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Mythic Quest is a show about a computer company, actually a video game company. They make a massively multiplayer online role playing game called Mythic Quest. It's just a funny workplace comedy. It's very
okay. Now I got a question for you.
But I'm sorry. It's got a new episode. It's coming back. Second season starts in 2 weeks. There's a special episode, new dropping today on Apple TV Plus. So if you have Apple TV Plus, go watch the new episode of Mythic Quest.
All right, now my question. I was also recommended and got about 20 minutes into it and said, not for me. The Boys. And I don't even get the premise of The Boys. I just thought, nah, this is not a superheroes thing. What'd you think?
Well, The Boys is a parody of superhero movies and TV shows. I mean, The Boys is a very dark look at what it would be like for superheroes to be real in the real world. So it is not for the faint of heart. The Superman character is is essentially a crazy fascist going around murdering people, and all of the other characters.
I got as far the Aquamarine guy is a sexual Me Too walking nightmare. I said, I don't need any of this. But then I saw HBO run an ad for superheroes in Victorian garb. I thought, well, that's an interesting combination of two genres.
Yeah, that's The Nevers, which was created by Joss Whedon. Speaking of walking Me Too cases, that was created by Joss Whedon and is on HBO now. I believe the first episode premiered last week. I have not watched that yet. I'm trying to decide if I want to spend the time to get into it. I probably should. I'm sure.
I like Victorian stuff. I read Victorian history. I know the Victorian Prime Minister, so I will watch that. I will give it a shot at least. So I'm looking forward to hearing what they say about it across the movie aisle. Do you do streaming on Across the Movie Aisle?
We do sometimes, especially since there's been kind of a lack of options in the movie theaters.
All right. Well, everyone go and subscribe to and comment upon Sonny Bunch and his gang at the Across the Movie Aisle. I've remembered it now, so now I want to say Across the Movie Aisle 7 times so you remember Across the Movie Aisle, as well as the interview with Hugh Hewitt, which you should subscribe to and comment on. Those are the two podcasts that you ought to listen to whenever they drop, and I drop mine more often than Sonny drops his. Across the Movie Aisle. Sonny Bunch, thank you. At Twitter, at Sonny